And let me, ladies and gentlemen, firstly formally welcome you, Lord Lieutenant, Mrs. Blundell, Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress, High Sheriff and Mrs. Burrows, Chief Constable. I'm not sure whether the Chief Constable's wife is with us. Yes, welcome. Pro-Chancellor. I did see his name on the dinner plan. And his wife, if she's with us, Reverend Jean Wynne, members of the University Council, University Regents here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and friends, old and new. It is my pleasure to welcome you this evening to Liverpool Hope University. Tonight is a celebration of the appointment of Dr. Denise Barrett-Baxendale as an honorary professor at this university. We have many guests from outside the university tonight, especially Denise's family. I gather her parents are with us, her husband Stuart, who we know well, and family and friends. And of course, members from the Everton family who are here in goodly numbers. Half of this university is likely to be blue. We won't talk about the colour of the other half tonight. Tonight is also a celebration of two organisations, both established in the 19th century and both working together in this great city of ours. It is a very special partnership between Liverpool Hope University and Everton Football Club, one in the business of higher education and the other in the business of sport. We may well ask then, what brings us together? At one level, it is what business schools do very well. Harvard Business School recently appointed Sir Alex Ferguson as a visiting professor because they were interested in what constitutes inspirational leadership. A large business organization interested in effective leadership can learn from a leader of a football club. In some ways, Everton Football Club and our business school are finding very interesting ways to work together, each supporting each other with their reflection about fan loyalty, sustainable and effective business practices, and now to establish and promote national and international networks. Everton has helped the university establish a chair in our business school committed to social responsibility. And Professor Ian Vanderville, who you'll hear from in a moment, currently occupies that established chair. I think that Everton has the most insightful Latin motto of all the football clubs in this country, nil satis nisi optimum, only excellence, literally, only excellence brings satisfaction. And that could be a motto for any academic community, really. In fact, certainly is a motto of this university's approach to education. But there is a more important level at which Everton and Hope University naturally make good collaborators. Everton probably leads all Premier League clubs in this country in their commitment to the upliftment of local communities. Its values and social commitments through its excellent foundation is an inspiration to us all and a great benefactor to the poor postcodes in our city. And there are certain disadvantaged communities around the club itself, around the football club, that benefit directly from the presence of that excellent foundation. And that is what chimes with the values of this university, which was also founded in the city before even the red brick universities were conceived of in the late 19th century. Our first college was established in 1844 at the height of the Victorian period, when there were only 6 universities in England, all of whom excluded women, Catholics and Jews from membership. And these early church colleges provided some of the first opportunities for women to progress beyond high school. And so there is a strong social consciousness that brings both these institutions together, and which brings us here tonight celebrating the appointment of Dr. Denise Barrett-Baxendale as visiting professor here. Denise will be properly introduced in a moment by the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor Kenneth Newport, But allow me to highlight one more of the motivations for inviting her to this role at this university. Over and above her dynamic leadership qualities and her commitment to the mission and values of this university, she has gained national, international recognition for her work. Not so long ago, she was invited by the Holy Father in Rome to a conference on how sport can help in the development of communities, in social cohesion, in reconciliation between groups in conflict, and in giving socially excluded people opportunities to break through the glass ceiling that countless generations have placed upon them. At this university, we believe if we provide the best possible education to everyone who gains admittance here, we will, in the very best possible way, be subversive. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to subvert the established hierarchies of privilege, the hierarchies of privilege that still exclude large sections of the British population. Denise's work on that conference in Rome and the way she has continued to implement these values at Everton Football Club have inspired the title of the inaugural lecture tonight: Modern Football Social Schemes, Sport at the Service of Humanity or Superficial Social Alibi. Professor Newport, please.
Members of the Hope community and Everton Football Club, distinguished guests and friends, it is a pleasure to have the opportunity to say just a few words by way of introduction for our inaugural lecturer this evening, Professor Denise Barrett-Baxendale. Professor Barrett-Baxendale is a well-known figure both nationally and internationally. Indeed, it's no exaggeration to say that she is one of the most prominent and highly respected women in the world of football anywhere in the world today. Before venturing into the world of sport, however, Professor Barrett-Baxendale spent 16 years working in education, including in higher education, where she fulfilled a variety of academic leadership roles. She holds a number of academic qualifications, including a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, Master of Arts degree, an MBA, and a doctorate. It is, however, in the world of sport, most particularly, though not exclusively football, that Professor Barrett-Baxendale is now so well known. She currently serves as Deputy Chief Executive Officer and a Director of Everton Football Club. As a senior executive of so substantial an operation as Everton Football Club, it is no surprise that she now takes up this visiting professorship here at the university. There are, however, additional reasons why this appointment is particularly appropriate. And not the least of these is the work that Professor Baxendale has undertaken in the context of being the Executive Director of the club's official charity, that is, Everton in the Community. And to this we can add her outstanding contribution to the development of Everton Free School. For those who are unfamiliar with the latter, let me simply say that, as a report on the BBC website says, it's a school for students who have been unable to stay in mainstream education. Behavioural problems and, in some cases, use of substances or brushes with the law and so on are given as among some of the possible reasons why these young people find themselves excluded from other educational opportunities. Well, as the Vice-Chancellor has alluded to, here at the university we share the view that education is a right for all and a means by which both individuals and society as a whole can move forward. We believe here at Liverpool Hope that education can change lives, free the spirit and build up the common good. It's hence a privilege for Hope to be associated with such a venture as Everton Free School and with the wider work of Everton in the community, the driving force behind which, let us remind ourselves, is our inaugural lecturer this evening. Professor Barrett-Baxendale is the recipient of many individual awards and has been key to many corporate achievements. These are simply too many to list in full, but some notable ones include her being named as Downtown Liverpool's Woman of the Year, earning the same organisation's Special CEO Achievement Award in 2013. In June 2014, she appeared on the Queen's Birthday Honours List and was made a member of the Order of the British Empire for services to the community of Merseyside, an award presented by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace in October. In 2016, she picked up the prestigious Lifetime Role Model Award at the Football is More conference in Switzerland. This accolade honours personalities for their excellent and lifelong commitment to a social cause. Permit me, if you will, to refer again to the motto, Nil Sati Nisi Optimum, the Latin phrase which I imagine most people in this room are very familiar with. Nothing is enough but the best. And permit me to add to it, if I may, the university's motto, which is this time in Greek, en piste elpidi kai agape, in faith, hope and love. In this mixture of mottos, we have real power, relentlessness in the pursuit of the best, and an unwillingness to be satisfied with anything less, together with a bold belief in what is possible and a deep-rooted concern for one's fellow human beings. And what the joint mottos signal is what is embodied in Professor Barrett-Baxendale. Her CV evidences that beyond any shadow of a doubt. And so it really is both a pleasure and a privilege to invite Professor Denise Barrett-Baxendale to present to us this evening her inaugural lecture, which comes in the form of a question: modern-day football social schemes, sport at the service of humanity, or superficial social alibi? We may be about to find out. Professor Barrett-Baxendale.
I am both humbled and honoured to receive such an esteemed accolade from an institution that I have such respect and admiration for. I accept this professorship this evening in recognition of so many special people and organisations. Wonderful people such as Professor Pillay and Mr. Robert Elston, the two most senior leaders of our partnered institutions. I thank them both for opening their minds to a collaboration that may not, at first blush, have appeared compatible. However, already, in such a short period of time, we are making great strides with our research objectives. Professor Vanderville, Dr. Chris Stone, and Martin Carey are such incredible colleagues who are becoming steeped in the work of Everton in the community and have provided me with a beautiful blend of support and challenge across everything we deliver. The board at Everton Football Club and the trustees at Everton in the community who guide the club and charity strategically with great skill and endeavour, please accept my personal thanks. Professor Jim Keaton, who co-constructed this partnership with me, thank you so much for your inspiration, intellect, but most of all, Jim, your friendship. But finally, my greatest thanks must go to the people who lead on our behalf each day within Everton in the community. The practitioners and community leaders who, in the words of Jones 2009, weave magic in our communities, and who, according to the work of Robinson 2010, have truly found their element. So let's hear more about these wonderful practitioners and their work as we explore my research topic. Here I invite you to consider my research question: whether modern-day football social schemes deliver sport at the service of humanity, or whether, in fact, they are simply a superficial social alibi. Now, the principal point for consideration here is whether there is genuine integrity, authenticity and goodwill in the apparent altruism of modern-day football, or whether this is just a sinister disguise to mask the excesses of the modern game. a cynical counterbalance to its decadence and disconnection from those who stimulate its commercial success. A sophisticated PR stunt for brand or reputational reinforcement, or, as expressed by Blash 2016, merely a fig leaf to camouflage the embarrassment of extreme wealth creation. I must at this stage acknowledge the paucity of academic research in respect of this debate to enable a rigorous validation of either argument. However, it is this very lack of contemporary academic research and independent measurement that has allowed the propagation of such uninformed views to go unchallenged. This in itself was a major driver behind the 5-year academic partnership between Everton Football Club and Liverpool Hope University, as Everton strives to demonstrate the real and tangible difference it makes. During the lecture, we will consider corporate social responsibility as a contested concept. We will report on commentator views, propose Everton in the community as an evidential model, reflect upon the historical placement of and role and purpose of football, introduce the social alibi argument, and explore the papal global declaration of principles of sport at the service of humanity. We'll then draw together some concluding comments and end with a qualitative case study from Everton in the community. Now, according to Waddington, Cheladurai and Skirtstat 2013, there is no single, indisputable definition of the term corporate social responsibility, hereafter referred to as CSR. For the purpose of academic framing, I propose to position Everton in the community within the Bradish and Cronin 2009 definition of CSR as being a mindset and practice that is grounded in giving back to one's community, providing goodwill to others, and effectively bringing about change to important social causes whilst maintaining sound business strategies. However, it is really important that I state that this placement is for academic reference only, because at Everton Football Club, we do not endorse the term CSR for any of our club or social endeavours. We firmly believe, as a people's club, that social responsibility is in our DNA. And we strongly believe that we're not a corporate, we're a club. A club acting as a symbolic representation of our locality, our community, and our heritage. A club delivering a service to its community as part of our civic duty. There is an age-old adage that football is a game played between 2 teams and 40,000 referees. But the serious side to that observation is the fact that everyone who is remotely interested in football has their own personal view about the game and those involved in it. This is further fueled by the media and broadcasters' insatiable appetite for our game. But we must acknowledge, however, as practitioners, that a common perception does exist, such as that of Con 2005 and Con 2013, that many people engaged in the game are overpaid, out of touch, and frankly, self-obsessed and greedy. Consequently, there are commentators who are cynical and critical of the motives of Premier League football clubs engaging in social activity of any kind, opining that the purpose of such schemes is purely self-serving to escape government intervention or critical analysis. However, there are others, such as Kennedy and Kennedy 2012, and Sanders, Hayes, Ravenscroft and Birdsley 2014, who stress the clear social benefits provided not only by sport generally, but specifically football. And we will hear more about these contrasting views as we progress through the lecture. I would now like to introduce Everton in the community as a model to challenge the social alibi argument, as I invite you to look at Premier League football, specifically at Everton Football Club, through a different lens, that of sport at the service of humanity. I acknowledge from the outset the risk of cognitive bias as propounded by Hazelton, Nettle and Andrews 2005 due to my professional proximity to the charity. I am conscious too of Kotler's 2013 notion of the sport evangelist. But I do not consider myself a sport evangelist, someone who professes that sport is the panacea of all social ills. I am simply hoping to share, as a reflective practitioner, my professional insight to add to the debate as advocated by Schoen 2016. Born out of local entities such as working men's clubs and church organisations, Everton Football Club has its roots firmly ingrained in religious belief. According to Kennedy 2011, the club's roots are to be found in the evangelising, muscular Christian movement of the latter part of the 19th century, a Methodist congregation based in a chapel on the corner of Breckfield Road North and St Domingo Vale. This muscular Christianity movement propounded a philosophy concerned with the remasculinization of men, rejoining the body with the soul, Mackay and Mackay 2016. And this movement was characterized by manliness, athleticism, teamwork, discipline, and, according to Newsom 1961, the expulsion of all that is effeminate, un-English, and excessively intellectual, and was propounded to have an additional underlying agenda to prepare men for war and work, to populate the factories or to fight for their country if required. Lupson 2006. And so it was that Reverend Ben Swift Chambers, the then minister of St Domingo Church, formed a football club, the purpose of which was to keep his cricket team fit during the winter months of 1878. Now, Reverend Chambers, he was a committed supporter of the Band of Hope, a temperance organisation, and his aim was to provide leisure activities promoting health and exercise alongside Christian sportsmanship as a distraction from the drudgery of toil and the evils of alcohol, both such prevalent facets of Victorian society. The football team prospered, attracting players from churches outside of the parish, and by November 1879, the football section of this church cricket club team was renamed Everton. So what have we been doing as a club since 1878 to pay tribute to our forefathers? Everton Football Club has been a constant innovator in the world of football, striving to be the best and the first to accomplish new feats. The image displayed on screen boasts our achievements, such as being a founder member of the Football League, the first club to have shirts numbered 1 to 11, the first club to break the transfer threshold when Alan Ball moved to Blackpool in 1966 for £110,000, the first club to have a scoreboard, the first club to install undersoil heating, the first club to have nets in the back of the goals, and the first club to have its own podcast and online social networking site, the first club to sell tickets by text message, and the first club to have its very own school. Alongside these many achievements and innovations, Everton Football Club has competed in the top division for a record 114 seasons and has won 15 major trophies: the League Championship 9 times, the FA Cup 5 times, and the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup once. Now, I'm sure you will agree that the aforementioned achievements are many, but sadly, football hasn't always presented itself as progressive, or indeed in a positive light. We will now view English football at its lowest point. Despite significant European success during the 1970s to early 80s, the late 80s marked a low point for English football. Stadia were crumbling, facilities were abysmal, hooliganism was rife, and English clubs found themselves banned from European competitions. The 80s in particular witnessed 3 specific tragedies which changed the landscape and legislation around UK football safety and stadia forever. Hillsborough, Heysel, and the Bradford Stadium fire, giving rise to the Taylor Report 1990 and legislation such as the Football Spectators Act 1989. It's important to note, however, the social context in which football operated in the 1980s. The Thatcher government had just taken power on the back of Callaghan's winter of discontent. Civil unrest was on the increase, women's rights were gathering pace, and unemployment was rampant. Trade unions were under attack, and there was rioting on the streets driven by racial disharmony and inner city poverty, all resulting in the decimation of erstwhile cohesive communities, and all contrasting starkly with the yuppie generation and the expansion of the city. The anonymity afforded by large crowds at football matches allowed this hotbed of almost anarchy to be played out on the terraces as gangs such as the inner city firm, Davis 1983, hijacked stadia to organise, express and unleash their suppressed anger as they railed against the social divide between the haves and the have-nots. It was following these catastrophic events that football community schemes were proposed as an attempt by the Football League to regain its reputation as a family game and ward off further government intervention, Stone 2018. And so it was that in 1988, Everton in the Community was born. Looking more closely at the modern game, in 1992 the Premier League was formed as the organising body of the competition that would play the world's most compelling and competitive football to inspire fans and partners alike and invigorate lives across the globe. We will discuss later the successes of the league, but whilst reflecting on the issues of historical football, let's consider the views on the modern game from commentators such as Wag 2004, Sugden and Tomlinson 2017, and Brackenridge, Pickford, Russell and Nutt 2007. So what do these commentators say? They say we're a league too concerned with our own commercial success, failing to meet the needs of supporters in respect of ticket pricing and kick-off times. A league mired in corruption, allegations of managers and agents taking bribes. A league that's prioritised reputation above safeguarding, for example, the recent Barry Bennell sex abuse scandal. A league remote from traditional football communities and grassroots, with players earning astronomical salaries, wholly detached from the people who idolise them. A league serving self-interest and not fair play, Con 2013. Now, moving away from academic commentators to the court of public opinion, the Premier League commissions independent research on sentiment analysis to provide insight into their reputation. The word cloud on screen represents comments from their most recent 2017 survey. You may note that there is no reference at all to community or sport for social good. In fact, those words that are coming out strongest on the screen are money-driven, arrogant, and commercial. So let us further consider the position of commentators such as Con, Wag, Sugden, amongst others, who in essence hold the view that Premier League social schemes are designed and developed purely as a smokescreen, a shallow gesture to obscure the real business of generating even greater wealth. The motive for this? A social sop, hush money to appease public perception of extravagance and greed. An artificial apology or excuse to salve the conscience of those owners, players, agents and football executives fortunate enough to be dining at the Ritz, whilst a significant proportion of the public, their fans, rely on food banks simply to survive. Additionally, there is a view held by academics such as Cashmore and Cleland 2014 in their work entitled Football's Dark Side, that little has been done by the sport to address any real key social messaging in respect of racism, homophobia, gambling, alcohol consumption and domestic violence. So this brings us back to the court of public opinion, the sense that football clubs are out of touch with their fans and remote from their communities, to the belief or perception that Premier League social schemes fail to tackle any real need and indeed do not even try to do so in anything other than a cosmetic way. The feeling that such schemes are merely pacifiers to quieten the rebellious mob. Having heard these views, I would now like to invite you to view the Premier League and its social schemes from a different perspective, a more positive perspective, that of an exciting, compelling global export and a sport at the service of humanity. So let's consider the Premier League at its best. A league boasting the best players, 28 of the world's top 100 players in the 2016-17 season. A league boasting the best stadia, £2.8 billion worth of investment in facilities since 1992. A game played in front of capacity crowds, full stadia, 96.5% full, a record high in 2016-17. A league that provides competitive and compelling football with uncertain outcomes. Leicester City at 5,000 to 1, with a fourth different winners in the last 4 seasons. A global fan base of 1.2 billion, with a global reach of 1 billion households. We should acknowledge here that football has tracked wider social change. Prior to the establishment of the Premier League, it was locked into a social world which fans and supporters felt close to. It was a symbol of civic identity, and organically, the people who used it as a symbol developed the importance of what fandom represented. We must now recognise that football is firmly part of a global entertainment business, very different from its origins, deeply rooted in civic identity and local meaning. Each team now having a minimum of 19 home opening nights to entertain a global audience. In 2016, £15.3 million of charitable funds were invested from the league into its clubs. Is this really just a conscience payment? Or is it a genuine attempt by the league to support its clubs to reconnect with their communities? Moving on now to the economic benefits yielded from the league. The most recent independent report produced by Ernst Young 2015 highlights the economic benefits in respect of the investment that the Premier League and its clubs contribute to the economy. This includes taxes to the exchequer, employment, gross value added to gross domestic product, and international broadcasting revenue. An updated report is due in May 2018, detailing the most recent economic contributions. So let us now turn to the social benefits of football. The words on screen reflect several positive acknowledgements relating to sport for social good. Football provides identity and belonging through connectivity, community, and family. Football creates a sense of shared pride, passive pride, transmitted through team success. Football engenders the power of unity, a force that has united countries, for example, through World Cup tournaments, and enemies, such as the Christmas Truce of 1914, where troops from both sides left their trenches to meet in no man's land, exchange gifts, and play football. Football is one of the last remaining recognised cornerstones of society. In a society that many social commentators acknowledged has observed the disintegration of social norms and traditional facets of society, such as jobs for life, marriage for life, traditional education systems, the role and influence of the church, and the familiarity of intergenerational neighbourhoods and cohesive communities. Social philosopher Bauman, 2000's notion of liquid modernity, acknowledges the fluidity of modern life and the breakdown of the aforementioned symbols of social solidity. Perhaps then, football continues to offer something relatively solid when all other things relied upon previously have evaporated, as we witness, according to Beck, 1992, the fragmentation of society. We have discussed football for social good in a general context. Let us now look a little closer to home as we review Everton in the community as a case study example of sport at the service of humanity. Map 2.1 is a heat map highlighting IMD data from 2015. This index profiles multiple deprivations including housing, health, education, employment, income, crime, and living environment. You will note that the area in the shadows of Goodison Park falls within the 0 to 1% most deprived neighbourhoods within our city. So how is Everton Football Club responding to these most harsh social conditions as a community football club? How is Everton Football Club reaching out to support those referred to by Bauman, 1998, as the flawed consumers, the underclass, those in need, those so poor that they are incapable of consuming? Everton Football Club, through its official charity Everton in the Community, provides support 365 days a year to the people of our city region. But what exactly is delivered via the club's social scheme? Everton in the Community offers 40 social programmes tackling the most severe social issues and supports the most vulnerable members of our community. We operate 365 days a year with 116 full-time staff, 40 casual staff and 200 volunteers, though we do not work in isolation, having over 230 partner organisations. Since 2010, we have supported 2,000 local charities each year and have secured over 100 awards and accolades for the quality and impact of our work. In 2012, we established our own school, a groundbreaking venture which witnessed Everton being the first Premier League football club to sponsor a free school. Our school is a school for 200 young people, 120 of that cohort being young people for whom, for whatever reason, a traditional form of education is not suited to them. Young people who may be self-harmers, care leavers, young offenders, or children who have been the victim of those harsh privations highlighted in the IMD data we heard about earlier. By using the power of our club crest to engage, we have managed to yield great success in terms of attendance, attainment and achievement, with Ofsted judging us in our 2014 inspection as good with outstanding features. However, our social investment is not just focused on our social programmes, which we'll hear about later. We have, since 2015, been developing a social campus at Goodison Park, which currently boasts a community asset value of £6.2 million. However, before we view our property portfolio from 2015 to date, let's view the most recent word cloud in respect of fan sentiment towards Everton Football Club to see if that differs at all from the one we viewed earlier about the Premier League in general. It's interesting to note here the clear differences in terminology and perspective from a club to the league. So on to our property, our community campus. Abandoned and desolate, a number of properties in the shadows of Goodison Park. properties that in 2015 were a major cause of antisocial behaviour and a community eyesore in need of major regeneration. After our intervention, the site now looks quite different. A £4.2 million free school challenging educational underachievement. A £1.2 million People's Hub tackling health inequalities across the city. An £800,000 Blue Base combating social isolation and providing respite for those living with additional needs. A £250,000 Home is Where the Heart Is project, a supported living programme dedicated to looked after children. And still to come, the Hub of Hope, a mental health hub providing access to support services from low-level anxiety to those at risk of suicide. And a disability centre of excellence at our training ground, Finch Farm. However, our most ambitious and exciting regeneration scheme could have an asset value of circa £100 million as we investigate with our partner, Liverpool Hope University, our civic inheritance scheme gifted to the city region as we relocate from Goodison Park to Bramley-Moor Dock. But the real magic is what happens behind the doors of these properties, alongside the obvious regeneration of the local neighbourhood. So what exactly does our charity offer to our local community in respect of social intervention and support programmes? Our 40 social programmes are structured under 6 thematic headings. Our youth engagement programmes harness the energy, enthusiasm and commitment of a wide range of young people, empowering them to effect positive social change. Our social inclusion offer provides support to individuals who are isolated and lonely, often on the margins of their communities, to gain confidence and belief that they can move on with their lives and reconnect with their communities. Disabled people do not have the same sporting and everyday life opportunities as their non-disabled peers. And our disability scheme seeks to redress this by improving access to facilities and empowering disabled people to take an active role in both sport and the wider society. Our youth justice programmes engage and support some of the most challenging young people across Merseyside, with the aim of breaking the cycle of reoffending, providing positive opportunities where former young offenders and children at risk may thrive and make a more constructive social contribution. Our health and social care schemes are designed to reduce inequalities and improve public health outcomes through preventative and intervention services, alongside tailored management and treatment plans. And our commitment to education is extensive and long-standing, from Everton Free School to our apprenticeship programme and our employability projects. We provide the opportunity for young people to discover, explore and reach their potential in a secure, supportive and stimulating environment. Everton in the community has had considerable local, national and international award success, and of course, securing awards is gratifying, but the importance is the external verification and validation of the quality and impact of our work. Additionally, our results can also be measured through our continued success at securing grant funding and capital investment from both public and private sector funders in a sector that has suffered considerable contraction in the availability of resources. In 2016, I received a papal invitation from Pope Francis to join a group of elite athletes, government officials, faith leaders, researchers and other influencers from around the world to take part in a global conference and workshop to test and challenge a blueprint devised by the Vatican to engage sport at the service of humanity. The espoused papal vision was to launch a global movement to inspire every organisation and participant in sport to live, think and act in accordance with an agreed declaration of principles. These principles are mapped against 6 themes: compassion, respect, love, enlightenment, balance, and joy. And although emerging from the Vatican, these principles accord with the priorities identified in strategies such as Sport England's Toward an Active Nation 2016 and the United Nations Millennium Development Goals 2015. As we've already heard earlier, in 1878, our forefathers established our club on the foundations of muscular Christianity. Today, in 2018, I would like to use this contemporary faith-based set of principles to test examples from Everton in the community to see if we are indeed delivering against any or all of the principles. So let's take compassion. Use the power of sport to help others. Share the benefits of sport to empower those who are poor and disadvantaged. Everton Free School. The majority of those young people who come to our school are living in severe deprivation and poverty. Our football club was very bold and brave in reaching out to those young people and taking the steps to establish our own school to care for those young people 365 days a year. And it's wonderful to see Mr. Cronin in the audience here, who leads our school, and the care and compassion that those senior teachers have to look after the pupils of Merseyside. We also have a people's picnic. We have 9 games a season where after the game's finished, we take the homeless community and have 3-course hot meal and give them some provisions to take home, which lasts for 2 weeks, non-perishable items. And we also have a food bank collection unit at Goodison Park for each and every Goodison home match. Respect. Use sport to build trust and understanding. Respect your opponents through sport. Understand them and their culture more deeply. Condemn violence in sport on and off the field of play. We have a fantastic asylum seekers programme. We support Kick It Out, which is a race and diversity programme from the Premier League, and also the FA Respect programme, and a really buoyant and successful NCS scheme. Love. Sport is for all. This is evidenced through our disability programme, our blind football team, deaf football team, wheelchair football, mixed gender football, from grassroots to our disability programme representing Team GB. Enlightenment. Sport has the power to transform lives and build character. Our Safe Hands programme, our work with young offenders, Breathing Space, our children coming out of secure care or looked after children, and also our work in adult prisons and our employment and apprenticeship schemes. Balance. Sport has the power to help us make the most of ourselves, so play it in the knowledge that it can revitalise you physically, mentally, emotionally and spiritually. At every stage of life, play for fun, for health and for friendship. Our Veterans programme, our mental health work and our programmes for the isolated community aged 75 and over. And joy. Sport above all is about enjoyment. And I would say that's the golden thread, or in our case, the blue thread that runs through everything we deliver at Everton Football Club. I have attempted to provide a balanced argument of the differing views, albeit from my perspective as a practitioner. However, as with so many facets of life, the reality here is that there can be no one singular conclusion which applies across the board. I must acknowledge that the claims of social alibi may indeed apply to some Premier League schemes, which do perhaps lack integrity and real impact. Those clubs whose community contribution can be captured by a player's insincere handshake or a false smile as they pose for a stage-managed photo call to present a certificate or a piece of merchandise to an idolising fan before being whisked away by the club's vast media team to another commercial event. However, I believe Everton in the community challenges any universal view that all Premier League social schemes are nothing but a social alibi. At Everton in the Community, we don't always get everything right. At times, we fail, and that's okay. We learn from our failures, we review, recalibrate, and respond. And at times, when things haven't worked so well for us, we have learnt the most about our community and our impact. However, I firmly maintain the position that Everton in the Community as a football scheme reaches communities and individuals in ways that other providers do not, and in many ways cannot, because of their unique relationship that fans have with our football club. This unique relationship means that Premier League football clubs have an exceptional, inimitable opportunity to use sport at the service of humanity, to far exceed the outcomes and effectiveness of many other types of social providers. So far from being a social alibi, they surely possess the foundations for being considered a serious social solution. So we have heard from commentators who claim Premier League social schemes are little more than a fig leaf to hide the shame of excessive wealth creation. You have heard from me, from my perspective as a practitioner, seeking to challenge that view, at least in respect of the work of Everton in the Community. May I endeavour now to close the lecture by introducing to you a qualitative case study from one of the participants of Everton in the Community, leaving the last word to somebody who has first-hand experience of whether Everton in the Community is a superficial social alibi or uses sport at the service of humanity.
It was difficult growing up, really. I had brothers and sisters with like cystic fibrosis. I was like really into me football, like playing football on a Saturday for the schools. I used to come with my dad and we used to sit in the main stand and I used to say, this is what I want to do. No, like think to yourself, I'd love to work in football one day. They were all like happy memories, football for me. So it was a real big part of my life even then. By the age of like 12, I started getting introduced to like alcohol, drugs and things like that. The hardest drug obviously on the streets of Liverpool was heroin. First time I took that I was 16. That was it, I was hooked straight away. I was homeless, in and out of hostels, sleeping rough for like 18 years. 18 years of my life. The city centre was like where everyone had sort of like congregated who was sleeping rough. I've slept in bin sheds and everything. I've slept in bus stops, doorways. What happened, right? He used to come and pick me up to come and play for the Whitechapel football team. And obviously Everton was in partnership with the Whitechapel. Met Henry and he see me, get me like back on track. They helped me get in supporters' housing and things like that. But that's like what we do now. We tie out the lads in the football team. It was a starting point. It was coming to the end of that. I'd been clean for about 48 months. I started as a volunteer, doing half a day on the dementia. Now I'm here every day. I'm an official tour guide. I work the matches, do the guard of honour. I met his mum when I was young, met our son. Didn't work out. It was like a drug-free relationship anyway. I said, I haven't really got a relationship with my lad. Without them even knowing Everton Football Club. Little things that they've brought our relationship on. I've got him staying on Fridays first time. He's actually stayed overnight with me since he was about 4 years of age. Giving me life back really, haven't you? When you look at it, that's like the top of it. They've given me life back by giving me this opportunity to work and do things. That's a dream.
Wasn't that an emotional video there? Vice-Chancellor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends of the university, in my capacity as Head of Business and the Everton Chair of Social Responsibility, it is my privilege and pleasure to respond to Professor Barrett-Baxendale's insightful, scholarly and provocative lecture, grounded in a passion for social justice and the common good. Professor Barrett-Baxendale began by posing a challenging question: whether modern-day football social schemes deliver sport at the service of humanity, or whether they are simply superficial social alibi. In her words, a sinister disguise to mask the excesses of the modern game. And we've been on a journey this evening. We've learnt of the origins of football, based in the muscular Christian movement. And much was going on at that time. It's interesting to note that this was initially triggered in the 1830s by the work of Thomas Arnold, the then head of Rugby School, whose aim was to transform his charges into good Christian gentlemen. And at the same time, our own Professor of Social Sciences, Professor Michael Lavalette, reminds us in his 2013 book, Capitalism and Sport, that modern sport developed as a backdrop to the Industrial Revolution. He also reminds us that the Football Association, which was founded in 1863, there were many other sports that came into being at about that time. So Rugby Union was formed in 1871, the FA Cup in 1872, Wimbledon Tennis Tournament in 1877, Everton, as we heard, in 1878, the British Amateur Boxing Association in 1880, and all this culminated in the first modern Olympics of 1896. From the historic origins of football, Professor Barrett-Baxendale then takes us on a journey showing football at its worst, through the 70s and 80s, where the headlines were less about the goals and more about the violence and hooliganism. And whilst this violence is no longer organised on the same scale, we nevertheless see all too regular flashbacks to such behaviours. Indeed, as we see tensions between the England and Russian hooligans, and I won't call them fans, begin to intensify, we may return to the worst side again as the World Cup approaches. Professor Barrett-Baxendale then presents the Premier League at its worst, as self-indulgent, intemperate and profligate. We must remember that football was professionalised way back in 1885, and for almost 80 years there was a maximum wage for players, which in 1961 was set at £20 a week. But as we heard, football became more and more commercialised, especially after 1992 when the Premier League was formed. And as the excesses grew, it was Portsmouth in 2010 that gained notoriety for becoming the first Premier League club to go into administration. Perhaps football finally proved a distraction to running the business. And we've seen football at its best, but we know what the papers say. We're all aware that over the years there's been a very close relationship between sport and the print media. Reports of matches and games with adulating accounts of the football stars and their clubs have long been used to sell newspapers. Yet it is ironic that these same papers decry the commercialisation and excesses of football. So, for example, The Guardian in 2014 tells us that football is the people's game and it's time we tackled its excesses. The Spectator in 2017 says that money in football went from being a sublime illustration of a beautiful game to a ridiculous caricature of its worst excesses. And whilst there are many others in the same vein, there are relatively few that give column space to the social good that many clubs now commit to. Perhaps the best example comes from the Telegraph in 2015, which headline states, "Everton are a shining beacon for football as a force for good in the community," and goes on to describe the excellent work of Professor Barrett-Baxendale and her dedicated team at Everton in the community. Nonetheless, Professor Barrett-Baxendale is undeniably correct when she says there's a paucity of research in this area. That's why this university is working with Everton Football Club and through the Search Research Centre, That is the Social, Economic and Applied Research Centre for Change. We have a number of research projects which are exploring the issues. But let us return to the question in hand and give some thought to what our response might be. Is it that amid the excesses, the problems, the corruption, where players and clubs appear increasingly remote from their fans, that there are those who believe that football has something more to give, a force for good in the community, as the Telegraph says? Well, it seems to be the case here with Everton in the community, a team of passionate individuals led by Professor Barrett-Baxendale, who work tirelessly for the good of the community. And is it the case that there is something in the DNA of Everton Football Club and those who lead this club that can't be suppressed, but instead this DNA is expressed in a will to help and support those who are less fortunate in our society? Well, perhaps whatever the papers and commentators say, this is undoubtedly the case here. And so, in bestowing this accolade and title of Professor of Leadership in Sport, serving humanity at this university, we also laud and applaud the work that you do. Professor Barrett-Baxendale, on behalf of the university and all of us here this evening, I'd like to thank you once again for the most thought-provoking and inspirational talk. Thank you very much.